All right, let's bring in our guest. He is one of the great college football analysts in the game. He's here after surviving another season rooting for his alma mater, the Alabama Crimson Tide. But more impressively, he survived a year quarterbacking the New York Jets. You can hear him each week on his very insightful podcast, Always College Football, with Greg McElroy. That's right, he slapped his own name on the show. Greg McElroy, thanks for coming on.
Not my choice. I wanted Always College Football to be independent. They felt strongly about my name being on it. Not sure why. Algorithm purposes, I believe. But either way, yeah, no, it's been fun, man. It's been a fun year.
You deserve it. It's your show. You get your name. That's how it works here in this country. Congratulations on the Crimson Tide getting a bid to the playoffs. They absolutely deserved it. And if I were interviewing Brady Quinn, I would say something completely different. No, I'm not just saying this because I had you on. I had exactly the same way the committee laid it out. How confident were you Sunday morning that the Tide wouldn't drop out of the top 10?
Well, honestly, Sal, like in my world, like I only want Alabama to succeed for my kids. Like for me, it's people over places. And while yes, Alabama's my alma mater, 100% will pull for them, support them in every way possible. Would never let that transgress into my professional opinion.
Of course.
However, my kids, one is a Notre Dame fan. So it was a very unique week in our household. My 6-year-old diehard Irish, all about Notre Dame in every sport, hockey included. And then my middle at 4, diehard Alabama. So it's been an intriguing, the first time the 6-year-old's lost to the 4-year-old, but it was, I think it was the right move. Like you look at this committee and everyone always cites yesteryear, Sal, like that's part of the problem. They point to reference points from 23 or 15 or 93 or 2011. And they say, well, it happened like this that year. Right. Y'all, every year is independent of itself. I mean, I think when you look at it this year, the most important criteria were protecting conference championships and making sure the head-to-head was going to win the day. And Miami beat Notre Dame. It was fairly understandable from my vantage point that Notre Dame was left out in favor of Miami, especially when you take into account conference championships and the people that comprise the college football playoff, mostly commissioners and one athletic director, that one athletic director being the leader, Pete Bavacqua at Notre Dame. So I know that they're going to protect conference championships. They did last year. They did this year. And I know they're going to honor the head-to-head. It's just those are the metrics that were most important this year, not power ratings, not FPI, not offensive and defensive efficiency. None of that stuff mattered this year. Whereas maybe next year, it's offensive and defensive efficiency. They're the most important thing when determining those last couple spots. So every year is independent. And I think we make a mistake by looking back to the past and say, well, that's what won last time. Why wouldn't it win this time? Because it's a different collection of data points and it's a different collection of teams. So it's always tough, but it was understandable why they did what they did.
Was it understandable to your 6-year-old was spelling it out like that on such grown-up terms? I don't know. I wonder. I don't know if I would have been able to take
me.
That.
He's like, you made sure Notre Dame didn't get it. I'm like, son, I made you a Notre Dame fan. I went to the Notre Dame bookstore last year and bought you the Notre Dame hoodie that transformed you into a diehard member of the Fighting Irish. So I am directly responsible for your fandom. So believe me, I'm not going to push your team out in favor of another team. Like I very much like Notre Dame. I think they're one of the best teams. It's just, it was hard to justify their inclusion over a team that had run a gauntlet in the SEC, had a strength of schedule that was 40 spots better than the Irish, and had the same regular season record as the Irish. So to me, it made sense between Notre Dame and Bama, and then Miami beat Notre Dame. To me, it was not that difficult to consume.
I think the fact that you addressed him as son and still don't know his name after 6 years might speak volumes about what's going on.
He's got to earn the name. You know, he doesn't have it yet. It's son 1, son 2, and you know you got to earn it from this point forward.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's not easy, right? Someone was going to get screwed no matter what. There's no way to make everyone happy. Most people would be happy, I think, if the 11 and 12 weren't Tulane and James Madison, but there's nothing we could do about that. That's how you cover most people. Most people probably would be happy if it went to 16 teams. So I think that's what's going to happen next year. But yeah, whichever way you turn, someone was getting screwed. How could two teams, Miami and Notre Dame, take shots at Bama for losing a conference title game, a top 2 conference title game, when they didn't even play in a conference title game. One wasn't good enough, and the other refuses to join a conference. So to me, that's asinine. A. B. Yes, you're right. When you talk about like going back from year to year, like, well, why wasn't it like, I kind of like that the committee screws over a different team every year. You can't just say, oh, they screw over the SEC every year. Alabama was last year. This year it's Notre Dame. That's kind of cool. But other than that, what's the solution? What do you do? What does Greg McElroy say?
I think the first thing is you reference going to 16. I'm not entirely on board with that because you and I, Sal, will be having this conversation. We'd say, oh man, I don't know. Who do you like? Arizona or Michigan? Look at those two teams. It's like, well, now we're only making it weaker on the back end, and yet the strength of argument will still continue to percolate whatever side you're on. And you're going to
let me tell you the difference. Let me say what the difference I think is. The difference is Notre Dame could potentially have won the championship as a top 10 team, or Miami, whoever they booted there.
Sure.
When you get down to the Arizonas and Michigans, all right, someone's going to get screwed over. But at that point, you can't make well, are they going to really win it? Like, I know once we're fractioning this off, but
right.
with the 3 lost teams, whatever, I don't feel as bad.
Sure. And with Texas, for example, they could win it. They're outside. So like that, they're at 13.
Okay.
Could Vanderbilt have won it? I don't know. Maybe.
Right.
Probably not. But
yeah,
in reality, I think you're only weakening the regular season. I mean, teams that lose a quarter of their games probably aren't really deserving of an opportunity. So you're only cutting off your nose to spite your face. I think the first fix is to take a good, strong look at conference championship games. What I think a lot of people are having a hard time with here is that Alabama lost the way they lost in the SEC championship game. But what people don't realize is that Alabama, by playing that game, actually strengthened their metrics. As crazy as that sounds, their strength of record improved, their strength of schedule improved. Their strength of schedule went from 11 to 6 just by playing the game. Meanwhile, Notre Dame and Miami, they're still sitting there at 44 and 45 respectively. That to me is crazy. We're wide gap there just by playing the game. But we need to reimagine conference championship games because the fact that Duke won a 5-way tiebreaker in the ACC to make it to the conference title game because the teams they played didn't fall off a cliff after they played them is not conducive to making sure that your conference championship goes to your best team. And it doesn't do you any good.
I think the ACC already fixed that. Like if this were to happen next year, no, I'm not kidding. Like Miami, they did change the tiebreaker qualifications, and Miami would be in that game. But yeah, you're right. I don't know.
But do we even need? Answer me this though, Sal. Do we even really need the quote conference championship game anymore?
No,
the
I don't think so.
ultimate goal of the conference championship is to provide revenue. In some ways, it used to be really meaningful. In the 14 playoff era, it was a necessary evil more often than not to win that game to make it in. But now in the 12-team era, it's kind of unnecessary. I mean, even in the Big Ten, the biggest conference championship game we've had in 16 years, 1 versus 2, both 12-0, all they did was determine what jersey you're going to wear in the national championship. Like, it didn't make a difference. So to me, we need to really look at this. Do we need to be crowning the top team? Or should we turn our own, quote, conference game into a playoff game, so to speak, so we don't have to share the money with anybody? Like, that's still ours. It's our conference playoff game instead. So what you would do, let's use the SEC as an example. Instead of playing Georgia versus Alabama, who based on ranking is 1 versus 4 in the SEC, you take Bama, who's 4, but in the field, against Texas, who's the highest ranked team outside the field in the SEC. You play those two teams, winner gets in. Or in the ACC's example, well, Miami is in right now as the 11 seed. You play them against Virginia, winner is in. You look at other games, Big 12, for example, let's say BYU's at 12, play them against Utah. Well, they played in the regular season. Who cares? Play again. This one's for all the marbles, and it's in a neutral site. So one team doesn't have a home field advantage. So now you play again. Utah beats BYU. Utah's in. There's a way of reimagining the conference championship weekend so it's not as cut and dry as it once was, where it's 1 versus 2 in the league. You get to take a trophy home. Now you get to take that opportunity and put a playoff, dangle that playoff carrot, winner gets in. And yet the leagues still benefit financially the same way they would off a conference championship. So I kind of hope that's where we go. And that's a way, by the way, of expanding the playoff field without really expanding the playoff field. Does that make sense?
I love that. I hated this past week. I thought this past week is the worst week for college football between the Lane Kiffin stuff and, you being on pins and needles. Oh my God, is Jeremiah Love going to transfer to LSU and opt out of the playoffs? Of course you don't want that. We're close to that, by the way. So the calendar has to move. You got that. You got conference championships that don't mean anything. Really, Ohio State, Indiana, it meant so little that Ohio State, who lost, is still the favorite to win the whole thing. I guess it decided the Heisman. Sure, great. And Georgia, Alabama meant nothing either. When the regular season game means more, that sucks. How about this? And I swear to God, I just thought of this as you were going through this. The 9 through 16, get rid of the conference championship week. Instead, we start the playoff 9 through 16. So then we get 4 teams out of them. And then after that week, we're left with the 12. You have your top 8, and then you have your 9 through 16 play. You eliminate 4 teams there. And now you have 12 going into this week, which is what we would have. And I think we'd have fewer headaches. Doesn't really necessarily do the conference thing like you said, but it does add that playoff week. Is that too involved? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. I can get on board with that. Here's the problem with that, though.
Go ahead.
Is that not all conference schedules are created equal? That's my biggest issue and the pushback there, because I look at a team like Ole Miss, who's in the SEC, right? Really strong league, universally respected. And Ole Miss played the easiest schedule in the SEC. Their strength of schedule was 41. Comparable, by the way, actually slightly stronger than that of Notre Dame and Miami, but their strength of schedule was 41. And they played in the same conference as Alabama, whose strength of schedule was 6.
Right.
That to me is hard. And yes, while Ole Miss is 3 spots in front of Alabama, you're now giving Ole Miss that quote first round bye when we're not really looking at the strength of schedule. So is a 10-2 that played the 6th ranked strength of schedule better than the 11-1 that played the 41st ranked strength of schedule? I don't know the answer to that. We're still going to have the same amount of drama. It doesn't really matter. There is no solution outside of expanding the playoff field to 20, 24, 36, which to me weakens the regular season. And that's what we do best in college football, is the regular season, where every game really does matter. And a game in week 1 between Miami and Notre Dame ends up being the most talked about game of the entire college football season. And none of us knew it when it was week 4. It just happened to be that way as the season went along. So there's playoff games scattered throughout the regular season. You just don't know which ones they are until you get to the finish line. And I think expanded the field would dilute that.
Okay. Humor me here one last time. And then I promise we'll actually talk about the practical part of Alabama getting in the playoffs here. You're right about all of it. Strength of schedule should matter. Head to head should matter. How can, in this day and age where AI is just all over the place and just rules our lives, how can we not have a computerized system that takes all the politics out of it so that you don't have to worry about who ESPN is screwing over? You don't have to worry about Notre Dame signing a deal where if they're in the top 12 next year, they get in. How ridiculous is that? You have a computerized system that takes into account everything we just talked about: strength of schedule, top 10 wins, strength of conference. If you want, when in the season they want, just put them all together, get it degree, and whatever the thing spits out, those are your top 12. And then you don't have people screaming about how there was actually an inside job where a team was fixed to get out.
This is a crazy theory, but didn't we have this? Didn't this exist forever?
Not for 12 teams, but not
for 12 teams, but for one. An example, Oklahoma State versus Alabama in 2011, and everyone cried foul then.
Oh, I don't want to decide one. I don't want to decide one, but we could decide 12 with it, can't we?
Do you think that's going to eliminate the drama? Probably not.
Well, it eliminates all the talk about how college football is fixed, and I'm not watching anymore because these are determined. Like that's correct, right? That doesn't help anyone. All right,
doesn't help anyone. Does it eliminate the shadow of doubt potentially? But people will still cry conspiracies no matter what. And I can tell you this, what I think is hilarious about the whole deal is that, believe me, if ESPN was behind it, Notre Dame, as one of the biggest brands in the entire country, one that moves the needle, you can play a Notre Dame game on Tuesday at 9:30 Central Time AM. And it's still going to do 10 million viewers because it's Notre Dame. Right. They are the cash cow, and it would have been good for everyone's business that covers college football if Notre Dame was in the field. So for them to cry like conspiracy theory, it's a reach.
Go ahead. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. Give Notre Dame fans what you want. Tell them what you want about this whole thing. Tell them how. Stop being babies.
Oh, I love Notre Dame. I feel like they were wronged,
Oh, bad
but
start.
the committee they were wronged because the system is impossible to bat 1,000. It won't ever bat 1,000 ever.
Right.
But the reality is Notre Dame, I think, can look in the mirror and say, hang on a second. In the last 2 years, in the first two games of the year, in 25 we started 0-2. In 24 we started 1-1 with a loss to NIU.
Right.
Maybe we need to look at our own scheduling model. Maybe we don't need to put our toughest games in the first 2 weeks of the season. Maybe we need to reimagine our scheduling agreement with the ACC so that our strength of schedule isn't in the 40s. It's maybe in the 15 to 16 range because we added a few quality Big Ten schools, not Purdue. Maybe we added a few quality SEC schools that would help boost our strength of schedule as opposed to 5 games in the ACC against lower tier opponents that aren't going to help you in the court of public opinion when it comes to the metrics. So
Right.
I think Notre Dame needs to shoulder some of the blame here.
Sure,
And
of
part
course.
of it has to do with their own scheduling philosophy, when games are played, where they're played, and who they're played against.
Also, all right, the Rudy movie was great and everything, and Notre Dame, the lore for 100 years, whatever. But join the ACC. You're playing 5 teams anyway. If you get to the ACC championship game and win that, no one's pushing you out. No doubt about it. So, I don't know. All right, listen, let's talk about your team, Alabama, 22-1 to win the whole thing. I know your 4-year-old is delighted about this. They open at Oklahoma and then go on to face the Hoosiers if they win that. I don't mind the odds here. I think if you go on a run like you did in late September to early November, beat up some good teams. Even that Oklahoma game the first time was 23-21, but you doubled their yardage, doubled the first downs, and the stupid turnover did you in. But 22-1, pretty good. Sleeping on the Tide, I think.
And honestly, like I think it's it's not a favorable draw. There's no favorable draw. But last year the champion came out of the 8-9 game in the first round. That was Ohio State. Obviously different animal. That Ohio State team was amazing. I don't know if this Alabama team is. We'll find out. But here's what I know about Alabama. One, they've won a lot of close games, so they're very battle tested. They're comfortable in that scenario. They can somehow go on the road, win the first one, then they're in neutral sites the rest of the way. I know this about Alabama. They will not ever be at a disadvantage when it comes to a neutral site environment. They're going to have a lot of fans there. That's for sure. So in the event in which they get through week one, it'll be a tough one. But if they can get that one against an Oklahoma team that has their own challenges, now they get to play the role of the hunter, whereas Indiana is the role of the hunted. And that is a bit of a foreign role for Indiana. And Indiana, I think, is amazing. And that's a great matchup for Indiana against a team that has kind of struggled to find themselves. But in a one-game season, a team with championship pedigree that has been in the mix before, against a team that's never been there before, that has never been at number one, has never been in thin air like this, with all the expectations, and this being your year, that's a heavy weight. It's a heavy burden to carry. And Indiana is traditionally in games like that, they're the underdog, and they love the puncher's chance. Well, now the role's on the other side. You get through that one somehow. Now you get a Texas Tech or Oregon team that I think both are excellent football teams, but they're not last year's Ohio State, not with what I've seen up to this point. So, I mean, I think you got a puncher's chance, and at 22-1, it's a pretty decent price.
I think so too. Adam, we talked about Ohio State, Indiana, and that game. The Ohio State would be favored in that game. Who would you pick between them? Was it, if your team doesn't make it, do you think it comes down to those two, or is there another mid-tier team there that can come out of this group?
I don't know what the price is on Texas Tech, but I really like their defensive line. That's a pretty good place to start. I don't know if they can somehow win 3 in a row against Indiana.
Almost
Oregon.
10-1 odds. Yeah, 10-1.
Yeah, I'd like it more at 15, in that vicinity. But if you're trying to find some value, I mean, what's the chalk on Ohio State? What, 2.5-1? I mean, I think that to me is, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it'd be foolish not to sprinkle a little on it because Ohio State has responded well to setbacks in the past. Granted, one season, but a loss galvanized that team and they became better as a result last year against Michigan. So I think Ohio State's still very live. I love Indiana. I think they're an excellent football team. I think George is excellent as well. The thing about it, though, Sal, is the gap between all the teams. Everyone had thought for a while now that, oh, it's Ohio State by a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And you found out last week in their first real competition of the year, well, maybe that gap between Ohio State and everybody else isn't so wide. And then you found out that, whoa, Indiana can go. They can win on defense. They can pressure the quarterback. Now they're starting to think, okay, Ohio State's vulnerable. Maybe Indiana's that incredible team. Well, Indiana's never had to play in championship games before. It's a different animal for them. This is a new experience, a new frontier. They hadn't been in the Rose Bowl in my parents' generation.
Right.
In my parents' lifetime, they've never been there. So that I think is unique. But Georgia to me is still a team that's on the upward ascent. And if I had to back a team right now, given the price, it'd be Georgia. But I think it's one where you can make a strong argument. I'm not kidding when I tell you this. I think there are 10 teams that could legitimately win the national championship. 10. Now, the game has to go a certain way for a few of them. Oklahoma, for example, it's got to be a low-scoring grind. They got to force a few turnovers. But Oklahoma's not that dissimilar to Notre Dame last year. And Notre Dame got all the way to the finish line, had a chance in the national championship. They kind of win similarly to that Notre Dame team. Granted, maybe not as much juice at running back, but probably a little better wide receivers than what that Notre Dame team had. And probably a quarterback with a little more upside than what Riley Leonard had. So I think there's 10 teams that could win it. It's going to be about matchups. It's going to be about third down. It's going to be about red zone. And it's a little like the playoffs. Like, are there a lot of times when I feel great about the 7-9 Carolina Panthers going and making a run, or the 8-8 Houston Texans making a run in the past? No, not really. But it's not impossible when you take things into account. It's a little less quarterback driven though in college than it is in the NFL.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'm guessing you said 10 teams have a shot. James Madison and Tulane, you're saying maybe aren't going to be. I probably
wouldn't put any of your money, which is exorbitant. I wouldn't put any of your money on those.
It's fun. Well, first of all, you look at Alabama and Oklahoma, just the odds for either of those teams to win it all. Bama's 25-1, not even 22 anymore. Oklahoma's 45-1. And Oklahoma has that home game. I know Bama's a slight favorite, but that's a vast thing. You're right in saying I was looking at this like, who's got a team which team's got a quarterback that can win 4 in a row? I'm not a huge Mateer guy, but you're right? Riley Leonard was there last year, right? So it doesn't really matter as much. I guess I could like the Marcel Reed and look about Texas A&M. I'm looking at 19-1. 3 weeks ago, we were looking at them as a bye team for sure, right? Yeah. And then they kind of just fell apart a little bit, but maybe they're right back in it. I think you're right. Maybe some of these mid-rangers are the way to go. I want to say, does any quarterback, as long as we're talking about quarterbacks, does anyone stand out to you as the one ready to take snaps for your beloved former New York Jets, or would you not wish that on anyone?
Well, as a Jets fan, it's funny how you become a Jets fan and you're just such a glutton for punishment. But such is life. It's funny how us Jets fans kind of all stick together too. It's like half our crew's from the New York area, Long Island area, and they're all Jets fans. We got some Patriot fans, a bunch of folks from Boston and New England, but us Jets fans, like, we just love it. We can't help but be miserable. But it's
my dad was a season ticket holder forever. I would go with him to Shea Stadium, not only the Meadowlands, but Shea Stadium to watch Richard Todd and the Jets. Just those teams were awful, but. Yeah, I mean, do you want Mendoza or Dante Moore on that team next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mendoza and Dante Moore, there's not a quarterback that's like a slam dunk in this class. Right. They all come with question marks. They all come with some concerns. I've been impressed with Mendoza. I really have. I think he's a great player, but I am a little concerned about his readiness at the moment. I think it'd be helpful for a redshirt year in a perfect world. But as you know, how quickly Fireman Ed will start leading the booze, and how quickly they'll thrust him into the lineup unnecessarily. Because
what do you mean booze? BOOZE or BOO? Which either way, I guess. Yeah.
I think in order to accelerate the BOOZE can certainly help in that matter for sure. And as a Jets fan, Sundays can at times be gluttonous. But that's just the way it goes. Look, I'll say this. I think there's a lot of guys that are really, really solid.
Mm-hmm.
I just am concerned about the long-term upside. I think Dante Moore probably has the highest ceiling of this group, but there have been times where he showed a little bit of youth this year. And I do think the pass rush does affect him a little bit. It'd be helpful probably to get one more year in college. I don't know if he will. I don't know if he won't, but another year in college, just kind of learn how to move in the pocket, learn how to negotiate the rush, because so much in the NFL is about moving and staying alive as a thrower. I think he could stand to have another year. I think Fernando Mendoza is similar. I think Fernando Mendoza is very comfortable, very poised. I like that part of his game. There are a couple misses from time to time, but he can drive into some tight windows and has shown that from time to time as well. I also think he's got great wideouts too at Indiana that are very underrated, and they do a really good job of going up and making those contested catches for him. He's probably the number one guy right now. He's probably the most ready, but long term, is he going to have the highest ceiling? Is he the guy you want for sure when you have to go out there and win a difficult game at New England against Drake May, or a difficult game in Buffalo against Josh Allen? I don't know yet. I got to watch a little bit more and study a little more, but I like what I've seen so far. But long-term upside, Dante Moore would probably be my favorite based on what I've seen so far.
All right. That's fun. Now, by the way, was there pressure for you to pull like a Joe Namath getting drafted from Alabama by the Jets? Did you hear that a lot? I know you were seventh
rounder.
right?
Yep,
okay.
For sure. I had to follow in Joe Willie's footsteps as a seventh round pick. Yeah.
Were you getting that a lot though? Were people making that, Carla? Oh, well, that's good though.
I did wear 12 at Bama for Namath because that was my dad's favorite player, and he asked, "Hey, if you go to Bama, do you mind asking him if you can wear 12?"
Yeah.
And Joe Willie became a very, very close friend. So
you had to ask Joe, or you had to ask Alabama, or both?
No, at Alabama, it's up for grabs. They don't retire numbers. So
gotcha.
Snake, Stabler, and Joe became close family friends. So wore 12 for those guys, and for my dad, who loved both, who was a Raiders fan growing up in Los Angeles, California, loving Snake, but his favorite player as a young kid, like everybody's back in the 70s, was Joe Namath. So it was it was a cool spot, but no, never felt a lot of pressure to follow his footsteps.
Right.
Different caliber player.
All right.
Different caliber player. I just wanted to try to carve out a decent career, get my pension, and call it a day.
Well, listen, so 44-year-old Phillip Rivers is suiting up for the Colts. He may actually get the nod Sunday as a starter versus the Seahawks. Does this open up a window for 37-year-old Greg McElroy to make a comeback? I mean, you're a baby considering the recent retirement.
Yeah, I mean, Phillip's a granddad?
He's a grandfather, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. I think I'm going to stay where I'm at. I can throw the heck out of a small ball with my 6-year-old in the front yard. Like, we got him rolling already. He loves playing catch. So, like, right now there have been times when I've walked back in the house and tell my wife, like, man, I still got it.
Yeah.
I can throw it. But the ball's a little smaller and the weather's a little more comfortable. Where I'm at right now.
Well, the Colts play in a dome, and if you talk to the league, maybe they'll meet you halfway on the size of the ball. Maybe they'll change it just to get some younger faces in there.
I know people have done that in the past.
Another famous number 12. You're right. Has done that. Greg, thanks so much. You could check him out on Always College Football. And if you hear anything other than college football, you get a free refund, right? Is that how it works?
More
it's
often
false
than
advertising?
not. We do sneak in some padel and pickleball conversations every once in a while, but mostly stick to college ball.
Excellent. Look forward to that. Greg, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. We look forward to your NFL comeback.
Appreciate it, Sal.